On this episode of AV Week, fighting more counterfeit AV products, taking a look at whether or not Zoom still has a place, and AV as a service in the era of Peloton. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 547, recorded Friday, February 11th, 2022. I believe.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Crestron.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. As Magic Mitchell just mentioned to the guest here, it technically is my day off, but I like this job too much. It's one of those things that I do that I'll still do for free. So with us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week, let's start with ladies first. Closest to me is the fantastic Erica Williams, who's over in Kansas City. Welcome, ma'am. Hi,
thank you for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I'm very sorry that I won't be rooting for Erica's team come this Sunday. Well, by the time you listen to this, it'll be gone and over, and the Rams will have lost a humiliating defeat to the Bengals because I cannot root for the Los Angeles Rams. Rachel Harris is also with us. She is from New York. Welcome, ma'am, or lives in New York now. Welcome, ma'am.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and if I might add that all of the views expressed are my own.
Are indeed. They are indeed. Same goes for Erica as well. Rachel works for, they both work for pretty good-sized companies, so we'll just go with that. And last but not least, a gentleman who was tired of working with me in our day job at CTI. His name is Toby Tungle, and he has a brand spanking new business card that says Epiphan Video. Welcome, sir.
Nice to see you again, Tim. I'm not going far. I may not get to work with you every day, but I'm still a phone call away if you ever need to chat.
See, he's just like that. And he's not leaving Grand Rapids, so there's that, too.
True.
But no, Toby is now in charge of all of North America for Epiphan Video. So welcome, sir. And congratulations, seriously. There's a lot of people moving around here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks. There is a lot of people moving around, a lot of people that are changing different career tactics. You know, like myself, I went from the integration world to manufacturing, and people are going from manufacturing integrators. And it's really interesting to see how people are becoming more innovative in their career paths and not just assuming that, you know, that where their current path is where they need to go, and being unique and creative and getting outside of their comfort zone, which is the most important thing, as if anybody knows that follow me on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't follow me or Toby on Twitter if you don't want to be encouraged, especially if your name is Matt Scott. All right, first story comes to us. It's a weird inside joke, kids. Comes to us actually from the Wall Street Journal. The Peloton CEO, John Foley, is stepping down, and the firm is cutting 2,800 jobs. What on earth does this have to do with AV? I can make a couple different arguments here. First of all, if you've ever seen a Peloton bike, it's half AV. To be frank about it, it's a network device, connected bicycle with a ginormous screen on it. So there's the AV part. Here's the other part, though. This is where this gets me. It is the as-a-service model. And this is where it got Peloton a little bit sideways as well. Erica, we're going to start with you. You and Rachel both work for customers, clients of integrators, right? Toby's the manufacturer now, but you guys are both, you live and breathe and have talked with folks about the as-a-service model here. This is something that I don't know if it was the CEO, right, who just didn't get that model, understood that model. Yes, Peloton made hardware, right, and the bicycles are not inexpensive, but really where they were making their revenue from was this as-a-service and this monthly subscription type. So when you look at either the failure here, at least a temporary failure. Obviously, Peloton hasn't filed for bankruptcy yet, so we can't say complete failure here. But a little hiccup in their business plan, does it give you pause when it comes to hardware or AV as a service? Does it make you more, excited about it? Where does this kind of put, compare and contrast the Peloton model of as a service with what some integrators and quite frankly what some manufacturers are positing as AV as a service?
A couple things come to mind. Just initially to start out with the IT background that I have, just thinking about equipment life cycles to begin with. You think that the as a service offering is it's kind of awesome if you think about it. Every so many years, you have this subscription, they'll take care of you, you can upgrade this, that, or the other. There's convenience with it, absolutely. But the prices that are usually associated with that are pretty high. And it's one of the things that I've always wondered specifically about Peloton is that price point that you mentioned, the price of the bike. Is this as a service what's causing the cost of that to go up, or do they just use like really freaking awesome materials, which I mean they do, but it just makes you wonder, with that, when it comes to AV as a service. I've personally been kind of hesitant to suggest that and go with that because it seems like it's always changing. And using Zoom specifically as an example, because we're a Zoom shop. When they started offering that, they really hit it hard, and they're like, look at this awesome thing that we're offering, and you don't hear about it anymore, hardly ever. So it's like, okay, well, what happened there? And it just makes you wonder, also too, if it's the manufacturer that's offering that AV as a service, or if you look at other companies like Starin did an kind of an as a service offering too, like their little box package bundles. Like are the manufacturers going to be able to be successful doing this, or are they going to need some kind of integrator or representative to get that to really kick off?
Rachel, same kind of question. Rachel obviously also works in a big Fortune 500 company. When you look at, as Erica said, the kind of the IT model here, is this something that makes sense, the as a service when it comes to AV, or is it we're still kind of putting the parts and pieces together and it's not quite ready for prime time yet?
Okay, I believe in AV as a service. I think that clients like it, and I think that it gives the individual more power to research, find what they want, and take care of it by themselves. And I think people are drawn to that. I think that the time when Peloton had their success that we just lived through was an example of that, from layman to the regular exercise person, figuring out a best way to get everything that they wanted from a company. So I think that AV as a service has a future, and we should keep doing what we do to just keep getting closer to the clients. Now, what's concerning is if there is this kind of dip happening right now, and whether Peloton will make it or not, I have no idea. But honestly, what this makes me think about is just the culture change in terms of, I do streaming, that's what I think about, and the culture change in terms of the engagement that people are willing to accept as the world reopens, right? People are they going to go somewhere else to get that engagement with exercise that they were happy to get for the past 2 years from that bike with the live instructor on it? You know what I mean? Are they going to be able to compete with that? And that makes me wonder, what is streaming really going to look like as we open the world back up? Because everybody wants to keep it, but the audience has to be there, and the audience has to show up and want to keep it and be engaged. And so I think this is going to be really interesting to watch over the next couple of months, because Peloton is going to have to do something to keep their engagement going.
Yeah, absolutely. Toby, you'll have a final word on this. Take a look at it from an integrator, manufacturer, or however you want to take a look at it. But talk for a second about the future of AV as a service.
AV as a service is something that I think a lot of manufacturers and dealers are still trying to get their head wrapped around. There's quite a few that have some decent programs out there. They're really transitioning from that CapEx to OpEx purchase model, right? But if we look at Peloton specifically, they didn't really subsidize the entire experience. You had to go buy a really expensive bike, and then you had to have a monthly service, right? And if you look at what AV as a service should be, or really any software as a service model out there, a lot of those things get bundled together as that monthly fee, right? And as we continue to look at as a service in general, which Peloton did a decent job at. I'm not a Peloton user personally, but they had the reward piece where you had the scoreboard on the side and you could actually see where you were on the rankings. But what was the reward to actually bring you back every time? Was it something that I could get, the same level of service, the same experience, the same invigorating kind of workout that you want to have? As Tim, as you know, I'm a big cyclist. I have a cycling program that I use that's online that's $10 a month. And it gives me everything that Peloton would do, but it's on my own bike and I can watch Netflix or Peacock or whatever I want to watch for the day. I don't necessarily need somebody yelling at me on the screen either. Where I think it can be really applied for the AV service model is just more functionality, more seats, more features, and more of that scaling piece that people are looking for versus I've bundled this particular product and service together. This is what it is, and not reinventing that wheel and continuing to bring new products and new services as a service model to the market.
All right, very good. It will be interesting. Once we kind of let this smoke clear, exactly where Peloton and where the rest of it falls. The other thing that some folks smarter than me have said is this may have more to do with the chipset shortages, easy for me to say, than it does with the running of the company. So we'll also see on that. Next story comes to us from our friends over at AV Magazine from Dan McGrath. He asked a very interesting question. Is there still room for Zoom? Dan writes about the popularity and the rise in popularity of Zoom from 2020 all the way through 2022. If you remember correctly, 2019, actually a year before the pandemic, is when Zoom went public with their IPO. Jumped, I want to say, up to $120, $150 in a single day. A year later, it was ubiquitous with video conferencing. Zoom has become almost, not quite, almost the Kleenex of the video conferencing system. What's interesting, and just a week ago, we finished the AVNation Reader's Choices Awards. It came down to Zoom and Teams in the final round, and as luck would have it, or whatever would have it, Microsoft Teams won over Zoom. So I caught this article caught me a little bit, in that kind of flux there. Rachel, when you look at just the video conferencing system and quite frankly the soft codec systems, soft codec platforms, you look at Zoom, and Zoom is still, let's say, number one, number two, number three, right? And the third one, we can argue who that is, whether that's WebEx or, God help me, Google Hangout. And I love our friends at Google. There are new overlords or whatever, but that's a crappy platform. So is there, there was a report a couple of years ago, there was over 250 soft codec platforms, right? So basically, if you had a preference, you could kind of have your pick. Is there still room for that number two, number three, maybe even number four spot? Or is there a clear winner here and everybody else should go away and start working on something else?
Oh, I don't think there's any win. No, I don't think there's a win. I don't think there will ever be a winner. I think that they are all different and they have their strengths and weaknesses, which even just, as a user, as a consumer of video conferencing, I can think of different applications for each one. And I'm a super user, right? So, but people who aren't super users have the one that they connect with. So just like there will be 20 different ice cream brands, there should be 20 different video conferencing brands so everybody can get what they want.
Toby, same kind of question. Is there one significant winner here, or maybe two? And then, I don't know, WebEx should go do something else. Cisco should go do something else.
Well, I mean, is the real question is there room for Google and WebEx and GoToMeeting? No, there's not. And to be fair, Zoom and Teams are kind of the bigger players out there, but something to be pretty aware of is Zoom is really, it's not really a platform anymore. It's a verb, right? And the reason I say that is the Zoom fatigue, the Zoom bobbing, and all of the stuff that happens with Zoom, because through the pandemic, everybody was getting on Zoom because it was super easy for everybody to do it. Your grandmother could do it, your kids could do it, whatever it may be, and they really had that market share to go. Where I think Teams is really catching up, and really why they're getting that more regional divide is they were really dominating that security piece that Zoom just overlooked for months and months, and it's probably close to a year. until they actually realized that that was a real problem, where Teams and Microsoft have always been very security conscious to really focus in on that. You know, the international operability and security is really important to a lot of companies, especially as they're scaling and working through that. So again, is there room for Zoom? Yeah, I mean, they still have, 41 or 45% of the market share. I think that we're going to see a lot of these other guys, maybe not necessarily Google, but just get kind of fade off into the sunset as Zoom and Teams and, maybe a few other guys kind of come to the top here. But as organizations look at scaling and ease of use, I mean, these guys are kind of leading that way for us.
I might take a slight issue with Zoom always having been security conscious. Because there's a couple stories that I could point you to that in the spring and summer of 2020, they weren't, I'm not saying they weren't concerned about it, but they certainly had some holes that some hackers made aware to them. Let's just put it that way.
Well, right. And maybe I misspoke on that, but they were lacking the attention that the security side need that Teams actually was focused on, right? And that's where the Zoom bombing that happened in my fourth grade kids' school, where they just had somebody come into the meeting. I mean, it wasn't too long ago when they actually added all the passwords to actually get into these Zoom meetings before you could guess at a meeting and jump in, right? They hired a national security guy to kind of run and build that practice within Zoom. Personally, it was probably 2 years too late for some of that brand awareness piece that they're working through, but they're getting there. I don't think that they're going to be perfect for quite some time, though.
No, and it's one of the things that they got really quick. They got really big really quickly, right? And one of the things that is people who were not Mac lovers, especially back in the 90s and the 2000s, when Mac fans would say, "Oh, they don't, we don't have viruses for Macs." Well, no kidding, because nobody cared, right? That there wasn't a mass of Macs for you to write bugs for. That's why you wrote, malware for the Windows, because you got a bigger chunk of that, right? Well, the same thing with Zoom. Zoom nobody knew about it until they got really big, and then you had an interesting problem on your hands there. So, Erica, same kind of question here. Wrap this up. Is there room for Zoom still?
So I think I've officially gone into beating a dead horse territory with this, but absolutely, in my opinion, I believe that Zoom is still leading, and the reason I believe that is because of their offerings and support for different environments, namely virtual environments. When you look at Teams in Amazon Chime or WebEx or any of that stuff, or actually I take that back, WebEx does now have a virtual environment option, download installer, and the difference in experience when you're using something purpose built for the type of environment you're in is huge. And Zoom has gone above and beyond expectations with their development of being able to support virtual environments, and that's super huge. I've talked to quite a few firms in the AEC industry, like Henderson and several other companies, and as a response to the pandemic, they went to virtual environments. They're running their employees are using virtual environments, and they're having a really hard time with their existing virtual meetings and collaboration tools because they're not purpose built for virtual environments, and it just creates a huge headache and a nightmare, honestly, for support and for your users. It takes your client service takes a hit, everything takes a hit, and Zoom just continues to keep pumping out the updates, growing stronger, getting better with that, and they offer it for multiple different platforms now. So that's just something that they've definitely taken on, and as we move into more of a hybrid and more companies start going into these virtual environments, that's something that these other platforms really need to be taking notice of and being able to keep up.
I also want to point out that I didn't do this on purpose, but I like the fact that Erica kind of anchored this, because following her on Twitter, she spent an awful lot of time with Zoom here in the last 2 or 3 months, deploying a number for Henderson kind of all around the country. So I appreciate that perspective. Last story here comes to us from Commercial Integrator. L Acoustics has launched a task force to seize and destroy fake loudspeakers. I found this a little interesting. It is in conjunction with the Customs Administration for the People's Republic of China, working in conjunction with Acoustics. One of the things that kind of struck me was anytime, this is kind of goes a little bit back to the other story actually of having kind of the market share to make it worth your while to counterfeit something, right? Same thing with the Macs versus the PCs, having it worth your while to create malware and bugs for a specific operating system. Same thing here. These are higher end speakers, whether you can mass produce counterfeit microphones and wireless, or you can counterfeit speakers. Toby, anytime we talk about this, it's interesting both from an integration standpoint, manufacturer, and kind of the tech managers and the folks who are on the front line here. What can kind of the integration side, but also manufacturing side, do to make sure that these don't get into the hands of Erica and Rachel before they ever they end up on at the dock of the integrators before they put it into the rack? How do we make sure that these don't end up on a job site somewhere?
It's interesting because you hear a lot of different manufacturers out there that are taking a product, selling it to another manufacturer for white labeling, right? And it's a big differentiator what this particular article was of different individuals across the world taking something, making it something that it's not, and obviously having less quality gear in there. There's a lot of different manufacturers out there that have little nuances for how their quality is checked. They've got QC processes. If you're really close knit from an integration standpoint with the manufacturer, you're probably really well aware of where things are shipping from, how they're getting handled, who their engineering people are, how they're getting checked, and how quickly they can get to your door. If any of that seems a little bit off, typically you're going to get alerted to it pretty quickly, as well as having that relationship with the manufacturers to understand, like, hey, Tim, what's going on with this particular speaker product or whatever? Or, why is it taking 3 weeks longer? Why does this paint look a little different? Or why does your logo look a little bit different from the perspective of how it normally looks? If you keep really close attention to those details, I think a lot of this stuff would start to shake itself out. Not really sure how they found that overseas from their task force, but it was really interesting because Acoustics specifically is a high-end, very, very high-end niche brand for the audio market. And I would bet if you put that speaker in front of me versus the makeshift one, you could probably tell the difference because they have such high quality for their product line.
I think, though, you would have to plug it in.
You might have to plug it in. Yeah, that's true. Gotta hear it.
Because the screen printing might be real well done. Erica, and you and Rachel both, same question for you folks, right? Is if you get it, right, how do you guys handle, or how would you handle if you get something in your shop, in your conference room, in your rack, it suddenly is not performing like you expect it to, right? Or come to find out it is counterfeit. Do you guys have a mechanism here that whether you come back to the integrator or you start with manufacturers to make sure, hey, we need to be made right here as the ultimate purchaser of this?
Well, I just want to start off by saying this is why we can't have nice things. People just suck sometimes, right? Like, it sucks that we have to even have these conversations. So, everybody be nice to each other. And okay. So for that, we purchase everything through an integrator, and we also get coverage on it. So I'm immediately calling the integrator. Like, I'm giving you the money to buy the product, and I'm also giving you money to help me support the product. So I'm going to just say, you need to take care of this, right? And, internally here, part of our process is we get stuff, we unbox it, we check through it, we make sure everything's good. So that way we can hopefully catch things before they get installed. Obviously there's always a chance that that's not going to happen, but, we do try our best, at least internally. And we have, internal inventory system where we have to input all of the information and stuff like that. So just making sure that we're doing our due diligence to keep track of serial numbers and what the labels on the boxes look like to make sure they look correct and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we're just purchasing, and if there's a problem, then help us out to get it figured out, because when it trickles down, it could be on us. It could get us in trouble that we've got that stuff when we're running it, whether we know it or not.
Well, really quickly, because I want to ask you and Rachel the same question here, because I have a dear friend who runs a theater here locally. And now Brian is incredibly particular. Let's say that. Brian is very particular. Love him to death, but he's very particular. He does what you do, Erica, but he will also register the serial numbers with the manufacturer. Do you guys do that?
Yep.
Okay.
If there is, whether it's Logitech, Kramer, whatever it is, we have our company account set up with all of those sites. So when we get in a product, we go to register it, and there have been instances where we've entered a serial number for something, and it says, this can't be found, and it's immediately on the phone, immediately sending an email.
Yeah, I'll tell the story here at the end. So Rachel, same kind of question here. What is the process? Rachel works for a financial institution, so there are also different rules and regulations there as well. If you guys find counterfeit, what is the process?
Oh, honestly, in my role, I don't need to know that. But when I was when I did need to know that, I was really working for an integrator. So I was positioned tech managing for that company, and would have had to do that due diligence myself or go back to the team about that. I have to tell you, this article really caught me by surprise, because I didn't even realize anybody would have the gall to make the decision to build these speakers, fake speakers. Like, okay, I'm sure they're a consumer quality speaker or something that you can easily reproduce. Absolutely. But just the fact that somebody got together and had the conversation that this is how we're going to make this money this year was really eye-opening for me. And it makes you want to look around and really be very specific with your serial numbers, like Erica is doing, because it's important. And when you miss one, you never know. That could be the day you get a fake speaker.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too, Rachel, about the consumer. Like, what was it about this particular? I mean, you see fake AirPods all the time. You see fake Jabra Speak 510s at gas stations now. I saw that in Texas. Like that kind of stuff. It's just it is what it is. But I'm with you on like what like this really like that's what you picked. Okay, all right.
And let's be frank here. An acoustic speaker is not cheap, right? So maybe the payoff, right, was the payoff, right? The price tag. So very quickly, I'm not gonna throw the manufacturer under the bus, because it all turned out nice. But my buddy Brian, who is again very particular, he had an upgrade in his theater. A ton of these amplifiers. If you say amplifier in the world of AV, you're gonna name this amplifier probably in the first 3 guesses. Had an issue with one of them, calls them up. He's got the serial number because he keeps everything, right? And they say that serial number doesn't exist. Like, that's not even possible. So he had a unique experience of going down this whole counterfeit road. And so it was an interesting experience, an interesting perspective. Come to find out, they had made a mistake in the factory. It was a legitimate amplifier. Somebody screwed up somewhere in the serial numbering process, and one thing led to another, this, that, and the other. They came down and they sit down engineers and this, that, and the other. It was a whole big to-do, but because, again, he's particular, he was able to say, I've got the box. He had a picture of the box, right? The original box, the serial number was still stamped on the amplifier and everything. So yeah, the manufacturers do have ways to protect themselves, but sometimes they can also mistakes as well. So, all right, thank you all so much. I appreciate your time. Erica Williams, thank you. If somebody wants to connect with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I just want to shamelessly plug, I have to, you mentioned the Super Bowl. Henderson Engineers was the engineer for that stadium. So check out the Kansas City Business Journal article about our work on that. And then head over to hendersonengineers.com to see some of the other cool stuff that we're doing. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can find me at HaircutFW, and I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, SoFi Stadium, the home of the Chargers and some other stupid football team. Rachel Harris, thank you. How do people connect with you?
Thank you so much. And okay, so I'm on LinkedIn as R. Harris Production. That's production singular, after my first initial and my last name. R Harris Production. And I'm also on Twitter where I'm R Harris Pro. So good luck. I'll see you on the internet.
All right, very good. If you find Toby, you can follow you can follow Rachel because I refuse to let you follow me. Toby Tungle, how do people connect with you or your brand spanking new spot at the Fan Video?
Well, thanks again for having me, Tim. It's always good to chat with you, even on the other side of the fence this time, I guess. You can find me on Twitter at Toby Tungle, actually on any social media platform that is the same handle across the board. The company name is epifanvideo.com. Go over there, check it out. We've got a pretty kick-ass podcast with George and Dan as well. That we do a lot of cool stuff and a lot of very interesting topics.
Yeah, Epifans making some noise and picking up some really cool, really great folks. So check them out. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters. If you'd like to be encouraged on a daily basis, Toby Tungle's one. Corey Schaefer's another one. She's freaking awesome. She's on here this week. She was actually on last week. But go by the website if you would, please, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. About a month ago, I said, here, I'm going to all these places, and then things happened, and, ISE gets pushed off to frickin' May, which Barcelona in May is not a bad thing. But we do have some couple of things coming down the pipeline. Number one, if you're going to the NSCA BLC, I will physically be there. I'll get to hang out with Toby again. If you're not, but you're a member of NSCA, I will be the bright, shiny face that you get to experience virtually. So I get to hang out with my buddy Wallace Johnson and do that. And then we are heading to Enterprise Connect for the first time, hang out with Mr. David Danto and a bunch of folks talking UC, Unified Communications and Collaboration. And then at the end of April, we'll be hitting Vegas again because I just can't get enough of Sin City, I guess, this year for NAB, National Association of Broadcasters. And that is actually in conjunction at the same time as CinemaCon. So I will also be hanging out there as well somewhere in there. So I mentioned that just if you're there, come out or drop me a line, Tim at AVNation.tv, and let's connect, let's hang out because the world is slowly getting back together. So check that out at the website, AVNation.tv. It's AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.